Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to EFA101 on this Thursday, July 2nd. I got Caramel in the background here walking around, sniffing around, and she does like me, right? She sniffs around the world. She sniffs around the world and has her ear to the ground. She's not saying a word, but she's looking around, any noise, any smell, etc., right? Right now I'm melting in the sun. It's one of these beautiful week this week in Ottawa, Canada. And I want to ask you a question. I'm going to get up close and personal here on this hot summer day that I love the heat in. So, and my question to you is, and this is something that came to me because I've heard so many people say the same thing that are completely separate and apart from each other. They're not even interconnected whatsoever, but they say the same thing. And the question that was out there, and I'm going to make this short and sweet, when did a 55-year-old man and a 24-year-old man become equal? When is a man that's 55 that raised a family that's been paying taxes for over 30 to 35 years equal to that of a person that's been paying taxes maybe 10 years? Because in Canada, you start paying your taxes at 16, you start having income, et cetera, right? So when I'm looking at all these averages in Canada, for example, here's some, so this is Canada, right? So basically last year, this is last year's taxation. So you paid 15% on your first 47,000, right? And as you start making more money, then 20.5% on your next 47,000, it keeps going up to 26%, 29%, 33% on any taxable income over 210. Now that's gross. Remember, people, that's gross. So if you're making 210 in this country, you're really making about 100. By the time you paid your taxes, by the time you got skimmed off the top, by the time you get that actual net money and you go out and spend it again, you're paying more taxes and more fees, right? So it doesn't matter if you got your net, you go back out there and you're still spending on taxes and fees, correct? So in this country, in Canada, beautiful country, love our country. We just had Canada Day. Everybody will agree we have a beautiful country. It's being sucked on. The nipple of our country is like, it's probably about this big now. It has so many mouths on it, but it's being sucked on. It's being drained, right? And then the other thing I looked at it is that the average Canadian last year paid $40,000 in taxes. This is last year in Canada. The average Canadian family paid $40,000 in taxes. That was more combined than clothing, food, and shelter. So they paid more taxes in Canada last year than clothing, food, and shelter combined. Think about that. Now, I'm going to show you that a woman that's raising multiple children, raising a household, been paying taxes since she was 16 and she's 45 is not equal to that of a person that's 22 years old going to university, still living with their parents, right? You would agree? I would think so. And no different than a man that's 40, 45, 50, 55, 60 years old, raised a family, paid taxes since we're 16. Basically living in a great country, but really you can't really get ahead. If you can get ahead, you got to have a good life, right? You got a good life. You try to stay in a neighborhood, but you really got you stay within a box, within a realm, right? Unless you break out of your box, you work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, then you want to break out of the box. So let's go back to the reality here, right? When did everybody become equal? And on equality for all, when those that understand equality for all, I'm specifically looking at individuals, right? When I'm looking at groups, I'm looking at everything. When you, like yesterday or few days ago when I did the podcast on dyslexic, and I talked about the 20% of the population that's dyslexic and they got marginalized for the last 100 years, right? And if I look at equality for all, where is their compensation? Where's the compensation for those that are, what is it now? 35% of all dyslexic are high school dropout. 50% of the people that drug and alcohol are related to dyslexic, and 75% of the people in correctional type facilities are tied to dyslexic. So the system 100 years ago started marginalizing dyslexic when they started measuring the smarts to reading, right? So let's go to today, where they've marginalized again, and they made the 50-year-old man, the 40-year-old man, or 50-year-old man, 40-year-old woman, 30-year-old woman, 60-year-old woman, whatever, those family-raising individuals, members of our society, the fabric, the villages that raises and produces and gives back to the community, they became equal to that of a 20-year-old person. And I say that because they all got the same amount. Whether you own the business and your monthly cost is $30,000 a month to raise your family, to raise your business, to build, to go forward, to feed the system. Remember, everything goes up, right? You make $200,000 a year, they made $120,000 a year. It comes down to that. Whatever you make, they get 50% plus of it, correct? So when did a person that's 20 years old, 24 years old, 18 years old, living in their parents' house, living on their own, not raising children, not working 20, 30, 40 years in this country, not paying taxes for the last 30, 40, 50 years in this country. When did they become equal? When do we all start receiving the exact same amount of money? When does this person make $2,000 a month, this person make $2,000 a month, and they're both equal? When did that happen? Right? And this is what I talk about equality for all. We live in a society now that they've blended everybody the same. Whether you produce 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, keep going. Member of society. Half of your community centers out there, half of your schools, half of your parks, half of everything that you absorb. And like I said, there's this Canadian big nipple now, right? There's a nipple in Canada that has so many mouths on it, right? And a lot of that comes from those that produce. Right? It doesn't come. The system is created by the village of people, right? And I tell this to people: look at your most beautiful landmarks in your cities. In Ottawa, here, if you go down on Preston Street, beautiful landmark and everything on one of the intersections. That came from the business association. That came from the community. That came from the businesses. It doesn't come from your tax base. And if it does, it's very minimal. It's the community that pays for these things, right? And those same community members, those same individuals are those that are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old that have been pumping out money, that have been working. 12 years old, my first job, like official job, like newspaper job. Here's your salary, here's your pay, right? And I used to pay to work cash in restaurants when I was 12 years old or 11 years old. As young as I could start, I was in there. But those individuals, just like that, are out there. They're making the exact same amount of money, $2,000 a month. Doesn't matter if you're taxed to the hilt up to here. It doesn't matter if you just started and you're coasting right now. I'm getting $2,000 a month, and this family member, father, mother, that their bills are $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month are equals. When did that happen? That happened because we allowed it to happen. That happened because we have people in power that think that you are equal. And not only they think you're equal, they mandated it. They made it law. They signed some papers saying you are no different than them. Right now, like in the U.S. right now, if you look at the car burners and the building burners and the car flippers and all those evil mindsets, they would get the exact same amount of money as you if you worked 50 years in that country. Think about that. You are an equal. It doesn't matter how much you produce, doesn't matter how much you gave, doesn't matter if you put your feet up and you suck on that nipple. If you sit there and suck on that nipple and you whine so much more, and the louder you whine and the more violent you get and the more stupid and moronic you get more in this country, in other countries. And the squeaky wheel, right? And it's a wrong system. It's a wrong system because we have allowed the wrong people in power. And that's why. And if you ask yourself that question, the next time you vote, really, really, really look at the integral fabric of that party and look at behind them and look what they created. Look at what they created. Because flash forward in 20 years from now, and if you're not paying attention, if you're not listening to understand, you, the worker ant, those that produce and those that have and those that giveth, will be taken more. Will be taken more because that lazy ass sitting on that couch watching their doing all their little app stuff and doing nothing and playing their video games and basically not producing to anything, sleeping until 2 and partying until 4 and do whatever the hell they want on the system are be the same people expecting you to work harder because they want more. Jean-Guy Bourguignon, EFA 101.